to Secondhand Sellers, where we talk about all things thrift, resale, and secondhand. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Clayton.
Welcome back. So it's Thursday again. What do we want to talk about today?
So today we're going to be talking about staging your items when you're taking pictures for listing on eBay and other websites. So, what do you do to make your items sparkle?
Sparkle. Okay. So we probably should have had Hannah on this episode because she is our photographer. But in the process of our business, we did talk about staging a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So because when we started out, and we just made a sale on Etsy this week.
Oh, hey.
We don't have a lot of stuff on Etsy. But when we started out, we did intend to do both eBay and Etsy for some special items that we thought might be good for the Etsy crowd. And part of our discussion on that was the difference in presentation required from a platform like Etsy versus eBay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not saying that to say eBay doesn't deserve good photos. And I would love to hear if you guys stage photos on eBay. So when I talk about staging, I'm talking about putting the item that you're selling in an environment that is attractive to sort of give the buyer an idea of how it might be used, to best showcase the item. And this is something we don't do a whole lot on eBay. So on our eBay photos, feel free to go check them out if you want to. We have that link up in the bio section. But for our eBay photos, we just have a plain black or gray, I guess it's a charcoal gray background. For most of those photos, my sister uses the lighting and she uses like a DSLR camera to take our photos. So they are basically item in isolation,
mm-hmm.
unless it's a set. So if it's a set, so like for instance, we sold, I don't know, I may have talked about it, the 12 Days of Christmas stemware.
Yeah, I think you have.
She lined them all up in a photo, and then so that they were like an arc kind of thing, or a line, and she took wide angle and then small photos so you could actually see the details. And that is usually how we present things on eBay.
Yeah.
But on Etsy, so for instance, the thing we sold this week on Etsy was I called it a cottage core. It was kind of a gardeny themed. I think you probably saw them sitting in here. We maybe even had them in the background with these videos. It was like a garden themed cottage core-ish desk set. So it had a pencil cup, it had 2 bookends, and it had a paperweight. And I think that's what it was. It was a 4-piece desk set. And for that, she took photos of the items as a collection, did some, individual close-ups and things, and then, for instance, put books in between the bookends.
Yeah, nice.
So to kind of showcase it in use, if you will. I think she put a couple of like pens in the pencil cup and stuff. So we have done that, but almost exclusively for a platform like Etsy, where the aesthetics are really important. At least in our perception, the aesthetics are more important on Etsy. But I would love to know if it would make a difference on eBay. And maybe that is something that I should talk to Hannah about. Maybe we should trial it.
It would be interesting to do a comparison. Take if you had 2 of the same items,
mm-hmm.
list one, set your price, don't stage it. Just do the plain background
mm-hmm.
and see what it sells for, and then how long you've had it listed, and then do a side-by-side comparison, relist the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact listing title, same description, and then stage the item so that way it has that contrast.
Mm-hmm. So you do a little scientific experiment.
A little bit.
You have control
and then see which one sells better, which one sells faster,
mm-hmm.
just to experiment with it. Personally, I do like no staging.
No staging.
No.
So what do your photos look like?
Generally, I just use a desk because that's what I have, and generally, I have to remove items from the desk, put my own items I'm taking pictures of, listing, mm-hmm. and being as it's not my desk, it's my wife's, I have to replace everything exactly where it was.
So it's a whole thing.
So it's a whole fiasco. I don't have the space as of yet to make a photo booth.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully coming soon.
Hopefully soon. That way it'd be a little less headache.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm listing clothing, I literally have a clothes hook on the back of the door,
mm-hmm.
and I just put a hanger there and call it good. they aren't the best photos,
Mm-hmm.
especially being as I take everything. Every photo is just with my phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's quick, simple. I can take it, list it right onto eBay. Or another strategy I do is I'll take pictures, and then if I know guesstimates about how much it's going to weigh and ship, I will list things at home, or like when I'm not actively sitting there, when I have downtime at work or out and about, and my photos don't look that great. In fact, if you went through, it'd be like, you can see the corner of the bed in that photo, but it's just what I have available right now. It would be better to be like, cool, I have a photo booth. You could even get some cheap cardstock and do a plain white background, plain white floor to put up onto the table, and that would look a little bit better. But it comes with, you got to store that, you got to make sure it stays clean when you're putting stuff onto it. It's just haven't gotten to that state.
So are you hoping to go in that direction?
Eventually I want to make, I actually want to go and build a little photo booth using some vinyl flooring. And that way it can be like, oh wow, that looks nice, that looks detailed. I have seen where other people will do, it doesn't matter what background they use, because they use apps to remove the background and then put AI generated staging art. That would be interesting to experiment with, but that's also like $20 a month.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's worth it. You can do a really good photo at home with a little bit of work.
Yeah, I'd rather spend $20 or even $40, make a staging area that I can reuse every time, than pay $20 a month to have AI generated photos. I would even go get furniture to be like, this is my staging furniture, to be like, here's a desk, put it there, and make it
That'd
look
be perfect.
nice.
You just have a section, like a area in your storage to do that.
Or even getting, like you have Sheila,
our mannequins. And we do use our mannequins for both eBay and Etsy. So that's one thing that, if you count that staging, we do use those for both.
Because it takes more effort than just, it's on a clothes hanger or laying the clothing out. But clothes do look
different. And I think it's different if you're selling a t-shirt, for instance, than if you're selling a nightgown or a jacket or something with structure. Yeah. Because I don't know if I'm sure you guys, we've all gone to the store and pulled something off the rack and we're like, I don't know. And then you put it on, it looks completely different. And so I think that's sort of that principle. Having the form accentuates the clothes. And it can help it too if you need to get rid of wrinkles or something. Yeah. But as far as that goes, I think you can, as long as you have like a fairly clear and detailed photos, you can sell. So my thing would be is if you're going to start, we've talked about this before, just start. Yeah. Don't sit there and get stuck in, oh, I can't have professional quality photography and blah, blah, blah. It happened to be, my sister already had a DSLR camera. She's taken photography classes, so that was no extra expense. We did buy the lighting, which we're using for this, and we use for our actual, like, the nuts and bolts of our business. But talking about that app, like, and personally, I don't think I would ever be willing to pay $20 a month for something like that. We paid $40-ish for our light kit, which included our background. So that was more of a physical investment. If we ever wanted to sell it, we could turn it around and sell it. But, you know, different strokes for different folks. So if you're really worried about it, that is an option to try out. But I think you can really make a decent background and clear photos at home.
Yeah, and overall, like, it doesn't have to be that much effort. Some of my earliest listings, I just took my dining room table and put it on there, made sure there was nothing else behind it, and just said bleep and took pictures. And sure, you can see the wall in the background. It's fine. Like, it doesn't have the most nice presence, but it's better than some of these people. They'll list stuff on eBay, and it's like you can see their cluttered bedroom all around, and it's like, why would you do that? Yeah, and why not pick up a little bit?
I think there's a few factors in that. So there's a difference between good enough
Mhm.
and will impair your sales.
Yeah.
And so I think for my advice would be, if you're getting into this new or you feel like your sales are a little slow, go on there and look at your competition.
Mhm.
If you have a high competition item, especially, you want to focus on those photos because that might be what sets you apart from your 300 competitors.
Mhm.
If you got a unique item, maybe it's not as big of a deal. And always disclose any damage or discoloration or anything like that that could come back to bite you.
Mhm.
Obviously, we want to be honest resellers, so be picky and make sure you include photos and disclose in the description there too. But go in there and for any given item, let's say a video game,
Mhm.
look and see what the pictures look like of the sold listings versus the ones that are still on there. And sometimes you might understand why.
Yeah.
If it's blurry, like the very, very bare minimum you can do is try to take a clear photo.
Yeah. And that brings to something else in mind. How, on average, how many items, like let's say a video game, how many pictures do you take per item?
It depends.
Yeah.
So, for instance, we've talked about it. We've sold those Riedel wine glasses. They tend to sell really good.
Mhm.
She takes a few photos, but a glass, any sort of glassware that we've sold, it's mostly the same
Yeah.
on all the sides.
Rotate around.
So if there's a scratch or anything like that to disclose, she'll make sure to take a close-up of that. It might be a few pictures per, and she's more like click, you know,
Mhm.
that's her area. But we've sold a couple. My husband had some NES games.
Mhm.
And those ones, some of them were higher value. And so when she was doing those photos, and we were selling them for him, so we took a fee.
A seller fee.
Yeah, and then most of that money went to him. But she was very careful on those ones because a lot of them, they were inboxed.
Mhm.
And especially the inbox ones, to get every angle, every imperfection,
Mhm.
you know, zoom out, pull it apart to see what's in it.
Yeah.
You know, so those ones there was a couple times I think she almost went up to the max photos, which is 20 or 24.
I think it's 24.
Which you can do click, click, click. I mean, she
Yeah.
did it probably, but she was being careful with those because if you're selling something for a couple $100 even,
Mhm.
possibly, you want to make sure that the buyer knows what they're getting into and that you have disclosed everything.
Yeah.
If it's a $10 item or something, like I said, a glass or like, for instance, this, I don't know if you can see it over here, but we have like a little lamp up there. I can't remember how many she put on there, but probably just a few.
Yeah.
One each side, or one, maybe 4 for each side. I don't know.
But I
It's
have
not that different.
I have found that some people, they'll take bloop bloop 1, 2. They'll be like the front of an object, the back of the object, and it's like you put up forth a little bit more
Mhm.
effort, show it at different angles or rotate it around. You're gonna get a more consistent buyer just
Mhm.
because they're seeing more details of the item. Or with some of my items, for example, I'll list a bunch of pins.
Mhm.
Pins, you can get them for super cheap, and I don't mind selling them because you get about $5
Like
each.
clothing,
Yeah,
like pins,
like buttons and
like
pins and
badges.
stuff.
Yeah.
As long as I can list them for like $5 or more, I'll go ahead and take the time to list them. I'll go at one extra step and I'll get a quarter to put down with the pin as like
Comparison.
size comparison, just because some people, even if you put the dimensions in the description, which I don't necessarily do with every item, but if you put the dimensions in the description, some people aren't going to read the description. They're just going to look at the pictures and go, that's what I want. And if you get it and it's like, wow, this is a lot smaller than what I had, what I wanted, you're going to be upset and leave a bad review. And
You
so
always
it's
want to
just
set
like,
expectations.
yeah, if you think about the customer first, you're going to get and how the customer views your items that you're trying to sell, you're going to have a better experience with your customers. So
Sometimes it's as simple as, so along that vein. Sometimes Hannah has just taken a ruler and she'll photograph the ruler right along with it.
Yeah, and that's a great way to do it because it shows the exact dimensions. You don't have to physically do it. And
so I would agree with that. Do more than just a couple of photos, unless it's something really simplistic.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is just a click, but even a book, like, does it have edge or corner wear? That's really common for a book. So you make sure to get one little close up on the iffy areas or whatever. Or if it's got a really great detail, zoom in on that a little bit. And I think that does help. But I don't think, so what's your opinion on stage? I know you said you do very simple photos right now. You mostly do eBay and Mercari.
Yeah, I do mainly eBay. I'll do Mercari for items that it's like I can't sell this on eBay just
Mhm.
because the margin isn't there. But overall, I just do simple photos and do with what I have.
Mhm.
Eventually, I would like to be able to get a staging area, kind of like what you have,
Mhm.
or like I was saying, put down some vinyl flooring on a 2x4.
So you obviously want to have a set.
Yeah,
but what about staging, as in adding other things around? And you do have to be careful. I want to issue a warning on staging. If you're going to stage your photos, it can be a great thing, especially if you have a unique decor piece.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, this I think is why vintage and antique malls are sometimes really successful, because you have said, some people don't have an eye for design or what have you. And if you can show them how to use a thing, how this banal object might be something, can be used something more interesting. Like, for instance, you told me you saw a ladder used as a plant hanger. Not everyone's going to think about doing that, but if you can show the customer, hey, this is an option for this otherwise thing that would just sit there, it can help you push through sales.
I think if I had the space and opportunity to do so, I would take the time to stage items, especially being as I have a large eBay inventory that I could pull from to use for staging. But for right now, I'm fine with not doing it.
Yeah, and I don't think I think it is a little more important on Etsy.
Yeah.
But my warning, go back to my warning there, make sure you disclose that only the item that you're selling is the item that you're selling. So don't ever, I shouldn't say don't ever, but I would not advise you to just do a staged photo. Take individual product photos, stage the photo in one photo or two to kind of give people that, oh, this is cute, this is how it's used. And then maybe even put in the description, books not included, like I said with the book thing, or, like whatever. Make it clear to the buyer that the only thing you're getting is the item that's listed. That would be my only fear, is like, especially if you just did one photo, you don't want any confusion that everything in that photo is going to the buyer.
And like you were saying with the antique malls, they have the benefit of environmental storytelling with all the set pieces they already have. Yeah,
you go booth to booth and they can be very different.
Very different.
Stylistically.
And each person has a unique perspective. And so keep that in mind when you are staging, because you might push away a certain customer.
That's true.
If you stage with a certain mindset. So
I don't think it's bad to know your audience too. And I think in this conversation about whether or not you stage on eBay, and maybe I should talk to Hannah, maybe we should try a couple and just see if that makes a difference to an eBay customer. And maybe it depends on what you're selling.
Yeah.
So if I'm selling just like a piece of stemware or a bowl or something, maybe that person wouldn't care because they want the object for the functionality. But maybe if I'm selling, for instance, well, you can actually see it in the community page here on eBay. I took a picture, kind of staged with some of my own things, of deer metal, I think they're brass, deer candle holders that I bought to sell. They're really cool. And that kind of customer that's looking for that unique decor piece might appreciate a little staging to make them, oh, wow, that would look really great on my mantle, or that would look really great next to this plant I've got, or whatever. And I think maybe the category you're in matters.
Yeah.
But the other thing I would say,
I definitely think the category that you're in would matter for that, especially for a unique antique like that. Like a certain buyers already having that in mind.
They're probably looking for an interesting decor piece to finish off, something that will set them apart from what you could just go to Target and get or whatever. But not only that, but I would suggest that your brand identity would matter in this. So when I think of Keeled Overstock, the things that Hannah and I have talked about doing, the direction of the things we tend to buy, with a few exceptions, because I do sell some random stuff. Sometimes we've talked about getting rid of our own stuff on there, and I do pick up some, like I said, sometimes I'll pick up the stemware and stuff because they sell good, and I know what I'm looking for in that category. But a lot of our stuff is vintage or antique or decor. Like, that is the core of Keeled Overstock. Even we've got books and magazines on there. They're old. Yeah. Almost all of them, with just a few exceptions. So our brand identity is more towards that vintage mall type. We don't have a booth right now, but it's more towards that kind of environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes a difference versus we sell anything seller. Because there's a type of reseller that just sells anything, and I think you're a little more towards that end of that. You don't specialize as much as we do.
No.
There are some things that I will leave just because I'm like, I don't want to.
If I can make profit.
Yeah, and it's just a different thing. You know
Right.
what I mean? And I've actually thought, because we do sell some cookware and, like I said, the stemware and a few other glasses and things that we've picked up on the way, just along the way. Because also often glassware you can get very cheaply too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other part, is I sometimes pick it up because I can get it for $1 or $2, because it's often undervalued in the wider secondhand marketplace. It's not every glassware, so you have to know what brand you're looking for. But I thought about down the road when we're bigger, because we're still in the very baby stages, possibly even opening because we've talked about going private. It would be nice to like have a private selling platform. And I've known I know other vintage stores and things do have their own online presence independent of like eBay and stuff.
Right.
I've thought about splitting off into like a housewares, cookware kind of segment where I do focus on maybe higher end or collectible cookware, and then keep Keeled Overstock just for
everything else.
Yeah, the vintage, the antique, the decor pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be a direction that I take down the road. But I think for our brand, staging does make a lot more sense.
Yeah. So interesting. Anything else that you had on this, or?
I think just experiment,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, if you don't have a lot of time, I wouldn't worry about staging unless you're on a very appearance or aesthetic conscious platform.
If you were specifically targeting high-end items that like the antiques, take the extra 5 minutes to stage them. You're going to have more consistent sales, we think. But
I think, and maybe we would love to hear. I'm sure there is an eBay seller out there that stages.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is, because there's all kinds of sellers on there. But yeah, I would be interested to find out, or I'd be interested to know, and I wish maybe this is something we need to look into testing, one or the other of us or both of us, items where there's a glut of them on eBay, if adding a couple of staged photos in there might push you in over the edge and push you towards getting the sale over the competitors. I'd be interested to know, because a lot of the stuff I sell, they're made, like sometimes I find comps, but it's not always like I have 300 comps.
Right.
So or 300 competitors even. So when you're selling a vintage decor piece or something, and there's only so many out there or so many for sale.
Yeah. I actually have an item in mind that I'm going to give it an experiment with. So
all right, report back.
We'll come back with that.
That'll be really interesting. You got something, the basic.
Yeah. It also kind of blends into the antique, so I'll let you know later.
we'll have an update, but do you have anything else to say about staging or presentation for photos?
Aside from that, just keep on selling,
Yep, keep on selling and keep on listening. We'll be back again next week with another episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
See ya.
Bye.